ground. Yeah, definitely. On the ground. On the ground.
In this video, you're gonna see an officer get violently slapped in the face, and what his partner does next after she watches it happens is even worse. This is a Shots Fired podcast. I'm Kyle Schoberg. This is Mark Redlich, and we have Patrick Cox in studio today. I would say, Patrick, you're an honorary guest, but this is like your fourth or third time coming on, so do we have to start paying you now?
Well, I was hoping at least for a steak dinner.
A steak dinner? What are we talking
last
about
time he was
here?
complaining about his sweater that he never got, that you
true.
still don't
No,
have.
you guys gave me one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did.
Mark, where did this incident occur? And let's break this video down because it's pretty shocking.
Yeah, it is. So this is coming out of Burlington, Vermont, July 27th, about 1:30 in the morning in a downtown district. So you know there's a lot of people that are out drinking. The bars are just letting out. You got to be on your game for this one. And it is shocking to watch that. So let's watch this video.
Hey,
Back Church of Maine.
back up. Back up.
We need more units at Church
Back
of Maine.
up. Back up. Back up. I'm gonna tase you. Back up. Tase me.
417, laser deployed.
Back up. Show me your hands. Back up. Show me your hands. You're gonna get tased again. Show me your hands. Down on the ground. Down on the ground. Yeah, definitely. On the ground. On the ground. On the ground. Back up, back up, back up, back up. You should perfect out there. Why? I don't know. See if you can look at this out.
He just came up. He
didn't say a word. Cross his legs. Crumble towards his body. And lean into him. He just smacked me in the face. Talk to me.
All right, so this is pretty hard to watch. I mean, that guy violently walks up to this cop who's just standing there and literally just slaps him right across the face. And then his partner does absolutely nothing, watches it happens. This whole thing was a mess. Let's talk about it from the start all the way until they finally get this guy into custody. What do you guys think?
Patrick, you're a use of force instructor and a taser instructor.
I was, yes.
So what's your thought on this?
On something like this, I mean, you can tell before the sound even kicks in. It looks like his mannerisms and everything as he approaches that officer still the same as after he hits him. You know, finger pointing, yelling. He's using vulgarity, but he gets hit. Obviously, the officer who gets struck starts to create some distance between him and that suspect. But the partner kind of stays there. She never changes. She never follows. The suspect and the other officer are now moving down the street, and she's still kind of standing there idle. I mean, she should be up there putting out, some radio traffic. Sounds like maybe she did, but be ready to use. Get ready to use force. Yes.
Yeah, I looked at it. I'm like, dude, this guy is super aggressively walking up to the cop, and the cop never changes his stance. He almost is like, he gives a guy a thumbs up, like, hey, are you good? I don't know what he's thinking in his head. There's no audio to begin with, but if someone is walking up to you like that aggressively, I'm preparing for something probably bad to happen. And I'm going to tell that dude, like, hey, dude, don't walk up to me like that, or stay, within arm's reach or something. But he just like lets him walk up to him and then just slaps him in the face. It just almost seemed like he, I don't know, wasn't taking it serious, or he has probably never been in a fight. That's never happened to him. What are your thoughts?
We talk often about complacency and how complacency can get you in trouble and hurt, sometimes even in even worse positions. But this, I don't even think complacency has anything to do with it. I just don't think he was in the mindset that anything could happen.
Yeah.
He was just so mellow and just standing there, and you're watching this guy walk up, and the officer's watching him. And I think that's why it's so important to really pay attention to people's body language and what they're doing and how they're doing it. He's walking pretty quick. He's got like that posture of like aggressiveness. His hands are in a weird position.
He's yelling at him. He's yelling at him.
Well, yeah. And the officer is just standing there super mellow. And I think your ability to recognize threats, you should really be keying in on that. And you should be getting in a position where you're like, okay, like you said, this is not going well. I need to step back, create a little distance, maybe try and get in a position to keep something between me and that person. But he just disregards all of that. I'm confused.
I agree. I don't think it's complacency. I just don't think he had any knowledge or never been in a situation like that where that has happened to him before. So yeah, I mean, it was super strange. Just letting him walk up to him like that. So now, okay, so he slaps him in the face. The partner whose body cam we're actually watching on this, she puts out a little bit of radio traffic, but she doesn't do anything to try to help her partner out. He's backpedaling. Clearly, he's taken off guard. You could tell, like, I don't want to use the word scared, but he seems like he's scared at that point of this dude attacking him. So that tells me that he probably doesn't know how to defend himself and probably isn't comfortable going hands-on or maybe fighting or anything like that. But she doesn't do anything. And so I don't know. It would be tough for me if I'm sitting here and someone walked up to you and slapped you in the face at work. My first reaction would probably be to tackle that person or go hands-on with them or do something. But I'm not just going to not do anything while they're walking out of my view and then just talk on the radio.
I think she was shocked, but Patrick, you do jujitsu. You actually do UFC type fighting. Like I've watched you fight in an actual cage against people. So from your perspective, what is it like to get hit or slapped, or like, what do you think this person's going through? And like, how do you respond to something like that?
Well, I think a lot of it goes back to your training, where if a situation like that happens, you should be able to rely on instinct. This guy's instinct was to start. The guy closed the distance on him. He struck him in the face, and his natural instinct was to start giving verbal commands and backpedaling, which no matter how fast you are moving backwards, that other person can always move faster forward. So, and you're backing up. You got to use that lateral movement. That way you know what's on your side. You don't know what's behind you, especially when you're backing up. He's transitioning to his taser. He's still giving verbal commands. Meanwhile, that guy's still closing the distance.
Do you think he was shocked or what?
My guess might have been he's probably had very few uses of force in his
for sure.
career.
I think he was scared. I think it scared him. And then once he got slapped, it was like, I don't think he knew really what to do at that point. And as a fighter, like if you're in a fight with somebody and your opponent is backpedaling and you're aggressing that person, I mean, you already have the upper hand.
Yeah. I mean, it's a mental game at that point, because you're like, okay, I'm closing that distance. I know I'm gaining that ground. And when this guy, obviously he's, might be caught up in that OODA loop, but he's recognizing his partners aren't really
doing
contributing
anything
to any aid at that point either. It would have been, me and you worked together for years. I think if one of us got hit, it would have been something that we addressed relatively quickly, probably immediately.
Yes, immediately.
Yeah, that should be your first instinct.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I mean, she should have ran to that dude and tackled him. Like at that point, she just assaulted this officer.
If she didn't feel comfortable going hands-on with even him, maybe she's not confident in her fighting skills. She also has less lethal options on her. She's got a taser, probably OC, some other stuff. I mean, she could have done something other than nothing, I thought. I mean, so the guy pulls out his taser. He's threatening to tase him. You made a comment beforehand. Like, I think that goes out the window at that point. Like, that dude is forcing him to backpedal. He's already struck him. I'm sorry, but if you want to give him a taser warning, fine. Give him maybe a chance to comply. But he repeats it over and over and over before he finally attempts to tase him. So then he does tase him. The female officer still isn't doing anything. And then you can see other officers are there. And then it looks like it looks to me like he gets a full body lockup from the taser, which for people that don't know, if you're struck by a taser, it's an automatic 5 seconds, complete full body lockup. His hands are down, but this also goes back to a training scar of, in law enforcement, you are constantly trained and told to yell at people to show you their hands, because we know hands obviously are the most dangerous thing, of anybody. So if you can't see people's hands, then that's dangerous. But in this case, you can actually see his hands. He's in a full body lockup, and then the officers are just screaming at him, show me your hands, like over and over and over again, when that should have been their opportunity to go hands-on with that guy while he was incapacitated by the taser, and try to get him in custody or throw him on the ground or something. But they just like sat there, watched him get locked up, and then they just yelled at him. And I always talked about it before, but I think those are one of those training scars where you train somebody to do something so many times, and then when you get stressed out, you can't like think outside of that. And so you just revert back to, what you used to do.
Well, and looking at when the taser, you guys know how it works. So obviously, the prongs come out at an angle, right?
Yeah.
So you want to create that spread between there to get that neuromuscular incapacitation. And what they typically teach is they want, one above the belt line, one below the belt line to try to lock everything up. If this guy's closing that distance on you, that spread's not going to be there, right? So, he's backpedaling. This guy's still closing the distance. So I imagine that spread wasn't as effective as it should have been. If that were to happen, like if I used it on Kyle right now, it would kind of lock him up, but then I would touch him to now create that third connection between it. So it locks everything up. And that's probably why he still stood up. Cause you guys have probably seen people get hit with that taser and they literally fall like a statue.
Yeah.
It did look kind of weird that he was like
he's leaning
shaking,
against
but
the
he's
wall.
like leaning.
Yeah, but it's
Probably
because
why?
that spread wasn't very wide. So he's not getting that full lockup. Like it stopped him, but you'd close that distance, you'd still touch him. So now you got that spread from probably his chest, maybe down to below the belt line, where now you're going to have that full lockup.
Well, also you have there's at least 3 or 4 cops now on scene when this is happening. And it just seems to me like when you talk about like team dynamics and team, like training together as your patrol team or whatever, like it didn't seem like any of them were on the same page. So I think that is an important lesson of when you're doing scenario-based training, a lot of times I feel like when you do scenario-based training, you'll do, instructors will do a scenario and it'll be like maybe 1 or 2 cops at most that actually run through a scenario. There's not a lot of team type scenarios where you're forcing the people you work with, introduce them to a scenario like that where, okay, the 3 or 4 of you, however many are on your team or they're dealing with the situation, you guys have to think together and communicate. One person's hands-on, one person's less lethal, whatever the case may be. But
Well, what you're describing is someone needs to actually be in charge, and no one was in that situation. And I think what happened is oftentimes, and I've done it, where you show up to a call and you run up and you get there and you're like, okay, someone needs to give me direction because I'm not really sure what's happening. I'm late to this party, and those officers are arriving and they're not doing anything because I think I would lean to believe that they're not really sure what's happening. But that one female officer keeps saying, get back. But she's actually behind the officers that are saying that, which is maybe causing them to think, well, am I not supposed to touch this person? Like, what's going on? But you do see that one officer out of the far distance end up coming up and has confidence.
Yeah. Well, he obviously knew. Yeah, he obviously had confidence. He gets out of his car, shows up. Obviously, he doesn't know exactly what's going on, but he's recognizing that this dude needs to be taken into custody and wasted no time and gets him on the ground and puts him in like an arm bar or something.
And with that taser, it almost looked like they were waiting for the thing to finish cycling, and then they were going to try to address him. But once you finish cycling, then he's got his movement back instantly. He does. So you've got to be able to work with that 5 seconds. The guy who's using that taser should have been like, hey, he's hit with the taser.
Yeah, go hands on,
and cuff under power while he's feeling the effects of the taser. Because once the taser stops cycling, the effects are off immediately, and then he's going to be right back in the fight.
I think cops are afraid to always go hands-on with people that are being tased because they're afraid that they're going to be tased.
I mean, you could get burned from the you see it in some of these other video, from the wires. Got to try to,
avoid touching those, or even so if you have the probes that are in between the 2 points of contact, even if you touch in between where those probes are, there is a likelihood you would get some of the tasing effect, right? You have to.
I've felt it. I've had it happen.
Yeah, I've had it happen to me as well.
Yeah, but it's not enough to keep me timid from touching someone.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I think that's why cops are so afraid to touch people that are being locked up, being tased, because they are afraid of also being tased.
Yeah, you hear that audibly, that it's cycling, and it's almost like they're waiting for that to
turn
stop,
off. Yeah,
and then they're going to try to.
Well, you were a taser instructor. How often did you train tasing someone and taking them into custody at the exact same time? How did the tasing instructing?
But that's typically in from taser. That's how they teach it. Is this thing gets implemented? The effectiveness of this taser, but also too because it affects everybody a little bit different. The distance of the probes is going to affect the lockup, but you have to cuff under power. Once they're feeling that jolt, that's affecting them. Use that opportunity. That's when it's probably the safest if you're going to go hands-on, is to go hands-on implement the cuffing, opposed to as soon as it's done, this guy, next thing you know, he's ripping it back out, and you're going to have to
now it's even more of a fight.
Yeah.
Well, so then you see the female officer, she's in the background and there's cops in front of her, but then she pulls her gun out. I think she realizes, no, this isn't what I need. She puts it back, she holsters it, and then she starts to put gloves on while all this is happening. And then her partners are going hands-on. It's just kind of a mess. Like, why are you putting gloves on in the middle of a fight? Like, we're past that. Like, you got to not worry about your gloves at that point in time. I mean,
well, I have an answer for that. And all three of us have seen it, and it happens with a ton of different officers that don't have the confidence to physically engage. If you're doing something other than going hands-on, it looks like you're doing something. And at this point, she's putting gloves on, so she's doing something. She's busy, and she can't physically grab.
Or maybe
I think that's an excuse to be like, I'm putting my gloves on. I'm not going to be able to actually go hands-on.
Or maybe she's just leaving it up to her partners to deal with. And maybe
she's stepping back the whole time. She's keeping other officers between her and the actual
So
suspect.
So we posted this video on Instagram. It got a ton of interaction, comments on there. And cops like that are dangerous to be out working on the street. I mean, when something happens, what good is that officer at this point? She didn't do anything other than probably cause more of a problem. It was more concerning that she actually pulled her gun out while other cops are standing in front of her. In her head, she's thinking that was the most appropriate thing to do at the time, was pull her firearm out. That's dangerous.
And I believe she had her taser out, transitions to her firearm, holsters that, and transitions to gloves. And it's like, but never, if anything, you were going to go hands on.
Yeah.
And
that's how bad things happen. That's how people accidentally get shot. That's how other officers get hurt. I mean, I don't know. People like that are dangerous, and I think you should pull them off the street, and they need to go through a serious training evaluation.
I agree. And in this case, both those officers, because they both didn't respond the way I would think is appropriate. Yeah. He didn't read the initial officer that was slapped, never read the body language, didn't pick up on the nonverbal cues, even the verbal cues of the guy being aggressive, saying stuff to him, walking up to him. He just stood there. He's lucky the guy didn't actually make a fist.
Yeah, or
and punch him,
grab a weapon or something. I mean, dude, cop. It's dangerous for him to be out there because he is going to allow himself to get hurt and not defend himself. He did in this scenario, but I'm saying something much, much worse. I mean, cops like that tend to get hurt, if not something way more serious.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily have a problem with her going with the lethal force, pulling out her gun. But if you do that, you've got to move up. You've got to let the person who's actually running that taser, but I have lethal force, or I have lethal cover, because that guy had like a little satchel or
he could have had a firearm on him, sure.
But move up, take some direction. You just can't stand in the back and have people in between you and have that blue on blue, and then still not do anything.
I think that's why training is so important. And one of the classes that Kyle and I teach, the Patrol Survival Tactics through Savage Training Group, we talk a lot about critical thinking, decision-making, and communication. And I think all of those play a big factor in this right here. Critical thinking, decision-making, and communication. Huge factor in this. In fact, we actually have a class February 5th in Vacaville, California. Check it out. Go to savagetraininggroup.com. We have 2 classes actually coming up. February 5th in Vacaville and March 10th in Bray, California. That's Southern California.
Yep. And if you guys want to host a class that we're doing, you can easily go to savagetraininggroup.com. You can host a class. It's free. You don't have to pay anything. We will travel to you and get it all sorted out from there. But not a long video, but these are good videos to watch. And I always enjoy when I'm doing patrol. Like, these are good patrol videos to watch and show your team of, just be on your guard. Don't be complacent, I guess, like you said. And even if it doesn't come down to complacency, I mean, a lot of this boils down to just bad training. So, anything else?
Nope, that's all I got. I think just be safe and stay smart.
All right, guys, we will catch you on the next video.